Hello ladies and gentlemen, welcome to another thing where I talk about things. Today we're going to talk about a very controversial subject, GamerGate, which you may have heard of, and if you have, you're probably rolling your eyes and groaning right now and saying, "No, Greg, don't get involved. It's too stupid." And it is, and don't worry, I'm not about to morally condemn anybody. This is not what this is about. The reason why I've taken an interest in it is I've actually been receiving material regarding GamerGate since it began. Like, people have been sending me emails, like Tumblr messages and stuff like that. And they're like, "Greg, go check this out." And I did, and I have since kept up with it, and it's really only gotten to be, I don't know. It's weird. It's just such a weird kind of controversy. But the reason why I think about it so much is because there's so much radicalization in the topic. And if you don't know what GamerGate is, I'll go into it here, and I'm going to go from like a chronological start to finish, or start to present, because it's still ongoing. But a lot of you have probably seen it. I mean, if you keep up with the video game stuff at all, if you go to 4chan, any popular forum, you've probably seen it once or twice. I know that it was on Reddit. Don't talk about it on Reddit, I've heard. If you do, you'll get banned. Shadow banned, I've heard, which is like an insidious form of banning. That's where they like ban you and they don't tell you, so you keep posting and everyone just ignores your posts and you don't know why. It's terrible. It's just a very sinister sort of ban. At least be honest when someone is banned. That's what I think. But in any case, though, yeah, it's so radical. And it worries me a little bit to see like really radical explosions of stuff appearing like this, because we're seeing it in politics. Like, Congress refuses to make compromises. We've got just radicals on, like, oh, I don't know, like in Sweden, they're talking about immigration. And it's not like one of those things where they're talking about, like, gee, I don't know, is this having a suppressive effect on wages? Maybe we ought to curb immigration. I've heard that they're talking about, if they haven't already, if they're talking about, like, making it legal to fleece people for paperwork if they look foreign. Things like that, like, just scary stuff. And these are not things that you want. Anytime that you get really radicalized in society, you start to get these big conflicts. And this is one of these things that GamerGate appears to be, is there's some radicalization, and people are kind of at each other's throats. And there's reasonable people in the mix, but I mean, like, it's so hard to tell what anybody is trying to achieve. I mean, like, there's criticism levied against both sides, and they're really kind of doing the same exact things to each other. And as far as I can tell, the only thing that's consistent about the GamerGate controversy is that everybody is calling everybody names. But there are factual things that occurred, and so this is where we're going to begin. So, the whole GamerGate thing begins actually with some allegations, and these allegations were actually never substantiated. But they were allegations that a game developer, who we're not going to name because it's dirty enough already, was sleeping around the gaming industry, like with game journalists, to secure good reviews, or like to get awards for her games in these competitions and things like that. And this was kind of based off of some things that an ex-boyfriend said about her relationships with these people while he was with her. Supposedly she was cheating on him to be sleeping with these guys to advance her career. Or so it was believed. The trouble is that since these allegations arose, and like I said, people have been sending me material on this thing, since these allegations arose, it appears that there's been quite a number of rebuttals on a number of things. It's like there wasn't a review that was posted from so-and-so, and so-and-so didn't actually give an award to so-and-so, and so there's kind of like, there's a lot of uncertainty as to what exactly even happened with all that at this point. And I believe that's become kind of a black eye for those on the side of the GamerGate movement, because originally they thought that it was like there's a lot of clear proof of cronyism, and there has been there has been collaboration that they can find, but this is like, it's old news. For a very long time, we've known that gaming journalism has been really flaky, really unreliable. It's been an ongoing joke, like IGN, whenever IGN does a review, and it's a really good review, like, people joke, like, IGN rates 11 out of 10, it's okay. So like, it's an okay game, you know, it has just a superfluous top rating. And that's because the AAA gaming industry, the developers, what they do is they will, like, they provide a ton of ad revenue to IGN or other major websites, and if the gaming companies don't provide a positive review, then the AAA dev will just pull their ads. They'll just be like, oh, well, we're not going to review, like, we're not going to put ads on a website that slanders, that you know, hurts our games. So they just leave. So there's a huge conflict of interests, and it's made gaming websites really unreliable. they're also kind of a niche market, and so there's also a lot of networking. Like, you find that everybody kind of knows each other if you really look into it, and they're not secretive about it. I mean, they openly talk about, like, oh yeah, I know this guy from that website, and this guy knows me, and I know him, and I know her, and they all kind of know each other. They all go to conventions, and so there's a lot of networking, and so everybody does. They talk to each other, they're involved, and one of the core criticisms that have come up in this whole debate is that game journalism has gotten to be just really very incestuous. Like, when one of them holds an opinion, you kind of find that a lot of them hold similar opinions, and it's kind of because they're all like, I mean, they're not like all friends, but you find that there's a lot of talk, and they have like, I don't know. They stay in contact. So this is something it's just made it to where, like, game journalism hasn't been very reliable. And a lot more people now are starting to drift away from game journalism to get information on their games. And aside from, like, technical specs and stuff like that, objective things that the games can't lie about. And they're starting to look more towards YouTubers, like Let's Players who are playing the games, and they demonstrate the games as they are. Like, you watch a gameplay, and you say, like, oh, this game looks like something I would play, or, oh, this game looks like something I would play. I've done this myself, like, tons of times. Like, whenever I'm looking up, like, oh, I want to buy a racing game, that one looks really good. So I look up a Let's Play of the game, and then I see, like, oh, that didn't come out the way that I thought it would, and I just don't pick up the game. So Let's Plays are one of the best ways that's, like, really friendly for the consumer. And even when Let's Players get paid to do a Let's Play, which happens sometimes, it's still kind of hard to make a game look like more than it is with just a Let's Play. Because it's just a recording of you playing the game, and then everyone gets to see, what is this game like? Do I want to buy it? So, as that's happening, as people are drifting away from game journalism due to the way that it's naturally kind of unreliable, I feel like game journals have started to drift more towards social issues. And what they're starting to do now is they're doing these, like, clickbait articles where they start to talk about not really whether or not games are good based on their gameplay or based on their graphics or this or that, but they're starting to do more and more articles based on whether or not games are morally acceptable. And this has been something that gaming, I mean, television, every form of media, I mean, like, rock and roll was turning the kids evil, and television was making the kids violent. Remember, video games was blamed for the Columbine shooting. So this is, like, old hat. This is, like, people before us have lived and died, mocking, like picking on media like this. This is not remotely new at all. But they're starting to do more articles where they talk about the morality of gaming. Where they're sort of like, oh, like, is this making everybody sexist? Like, is Bayonetta making everybody sexist? Here's 10 reasons why Bayonetta is making everybody sexist. And they're clickbait articles because what they do is they bring in a highly polarized audience. As people come in from, like, forums or whatever that agree with this view that, yeah, any game that has sex in it, that's sexist, and they upvote that stuff and they spread it around the social media, repost it on Tumblr. And then people who disagree come in and they get really mad and they post up their criticisms and they put their criticisms on their Tumblrs and they say, oh, look at these assholes, they think that Bayonetta is really sexist. And the trouble is that these clickbait articles, they're really, they tend not to be very constructive. They're mostly just kind of like, I don't know, a little bit misanthropic. Like, they just kind of look at it and they're like, is the industry sexist? Are we going downhill? Is society falling apart? Everything's going wrong. Hell's spilling up over into the real world. It's all gonna go downhill. That sort of thing. Because I've seen legitimate criticisms for stuff. Like, when people talk about, like, I've seen one that I liked was a criticism for Mulan, where they talked about, like, elements of Mulan, because it was a movie that was very much focused around gender stereotypes and things like that. And Mulan was kind of a story about a girl who just assumed the roles that she needed to assume. She became the role of a soldier, and she became the role of a boy, because she had to do it to protect her family, and that was kind of the way things go. And at the end of the movie, the soldiers dress up as geisha girls, because they're not geishas, I guess, they're Chinese. Just as, like, girls, they put on the makeup and everything, and carry, and, like, pad their chests to look like boobs, because that is what you do. But anyway, so yeah, so it was about just people assuming the roles that they had to do to get through in life and to make things work. And it was kind of like doing the right thing is more important than necessarily following your traditional roles, and so on and so on. That was sort of the moral. And so I've seen, like, critical analysis of the movie and how they address those themes, and, like, things where it maybe didn't work out so well, and times when it worked out really well. And that's criticism. Like, that's valid. Like, you look at this movie, you look at the themes that it's addressing, you talk about what it did right, what it did wrong, and how maybe, like, more movies that are interested in this subject could go on in the future. Constructive criticism. But when you go on and you say, like, our culture's being impacted and everyone's gonna die in the streets, and and, you know, and this is just sexist, and this is just wrong. It's not criticism, it's misanthropy. You're just kind of like assuming that society is going wrong, and like everyone's wrong, and culture is wrong, and this and that. And because it's misanthropic, it pulls in just a lot of people who want to dispute with it, or who want to share it because there's elements that they agree with, or they agree, you know, they agree like, yeah, society's going downhill, or society's, you know, or we need to do this, or we need to do that. And of course, games are art, just like movies, just like Mulan. You see games that do things that will play with gender roles, that will do interesting things. Fallout New Vegas has a bunch of different characters. Like, you get into all kinds of different moral implications within Fallout New Vegas. I personally consider it a fairly progressive game. It's not so well written that I would say it's like earth-shattering, but they have, like, you know, you can be a lesbian. There's like gay characters that you can get as companion. Ganon is like a gay, but they're really like just kind of casually, like, I'm just casually homosexual. They're not like, it's not like in your face. It's like a major theme of the game. It's just if you poke into his life, then you find out like, kind of like guys. And so, you know, I personally think that's rather progressive. And so you could look at Fallout New Vegas and look at areas where they did a good job with those kind of themes when they applied them, or when they did a poor job with those kind of themes and where they applied them. But a lot of these game journals are not really doing that. What they're doing is they're just kind of saying like, oh, you know, sexism. And that's been the more common theme. I haven't seen a lot of the ones about like violence. I think that's fallen out of vogue. The sexism one has gotten to be a lot more popular. So, like I say, highly polarized though. They're not examining the exact features. They're just stating a polarized view and then getting clicks because that brings in ad revenue. So it's gotten to be a source of major contention because now you've got this viewership that's highly factionalized. And Anita Sarkeesian came along, and she's another big name in this whole gaming debate debacle. And she got to be huge. For whatever reason, I just don't know. Because at first, when I started hearing about Anita, I thought to myself, like, wow, she must be like, I don't know, she must be like Malcolm X or something. Like maybe a controversial views, like a little bit hard line, but probably really charismatic and with like a strong voice. And because how else could she get so many views and so much attention? And so I went to go see her videos because I feel like it's good to seek out perspectives on, like, whether you agree with something or not. Like, if you've heard about Anita Sarkeesian and you disagree with her message, but you've never seen her videos, I encourage you to go look at her videos. Even if you just need to get ad block because you don't want to get her any ad revenue, just go look at her videos. Because what I found was not someone who was making, like, any kind of profound discussion. Anita, like, she doesn't even seem to be interested in what she's doing. Her analysis is, like, lazy. And she doesn't smile, she's not very expressive, she doesn't seem very passionate. And I've read that she's like in person, that she's like a nice person, but she just doesn't have like a commanding, you know, rhetorical talent. And so I just kind of watched her videos, and they were just so dull and so uninspired. And she came to like New Vegas, and she was like, New Vegas is a sexist game because the ragdolls of the women can be moved around after they die. And it's just sort of like, of all the criticisms that you could levy against a game, like, how was it that the ragdoll physics of the female models was like there are elements, I mean, there are elements in New Vegas that specifically have to do with gender and the stereotypes of gender. I mean, like, Caesar's Legion doesn't allow women to become soldiers. Women are automatically made into slaves. And you could have criticized that. You could have talked about that. You could have talked about some of the social issues that New Vegas actually addressed. But you talked about the ragdoll physics. Just lazy. She's grasping at straws, guys. I don't think that she even cares. But she's the center of a huge amount of controversy. It just boggles my mind. How did this happen? And again, what I think it is this clickbait stuff, the radicalization. Everybody just so like, I don't know, it's just sort of like, is Anita right? Is everything controversial? Is society going downhill? And everybody just shows up and they're like, no, society's fine as it is, nothing needs to change. And everyone else is like, no, society is going downhill, we need to fix it right away. And just, oh my god, there's so little substance in any of the arguments. There's just nothing there. So yes, Anita Sarkeesian, she's not going to be the Martin Luther King of our generation. She is going to be, I mean, she is a thing. I can't say that she's not, like, her face is everywhere now in gaming journals and all over the internet, but like I say, it's not like, I mean, to most of you, most everyone who's talking about her, I don't think they even really watch what she does. I mean, like, it's just so bizarre. It's like everyone's fighting just for the sake of fighting. And yes. So anyway, on with the GamerGate thing. So yes, the allegations were made against this developer for potentially having a sexual relationship, and people started to they did some doxing, or there's allegations that there was doxing. I've heard this one has been all over the place too. Is apparently first there was doxing is when you look up someone's personal information on the internet and then you post it to like a big public forum. So it's not like, I mean, you can do this. I actually doxed somebody once. They made a prank call to my telephone, and I looked up their phone number on Google, and I found their Facebook. And it was like, oh, this guy's name is Lucas. And like, it had where he lived, it had like his YouTube, like it had the list of all his friends. Like, I found him just by looking up the phone number that he called my phone with. That's doxing. So it's not as malicious as some people like to make it sound. I mean, like, if you have a ton of personal information on the internet, it's very easy to find information. So yes, so there was apparently, they said that they doxed this person, this developer, and then it turns out that the information that they doxed was all completely wrong. And so people were saying that, like, the doxing was not really done by anyone. It was like all fake information. And then later they accurately doxed her, I guess. Because this is the other thing that I've heard, is that this person who they doxed, this developer, wasn't even using their real name in the first place. So they, like, doxed a fake name. And that's just weird, too. But I don't know. I haven't seen any substantiation on that either. So, yes, the doxing occurred, and then apparently she was sent death threats. And so that's when the journal media started to explode. Because we get these clickbait articles. And so they were like, oh, you know, female person threatened, misogyny, you know, society going downhill, everything's on fire, everybody's gonna die. And boom, oh, that was a big controversy, because now you got people spreading this around on Tumblr, doing exactly what it is that they're expected to do with clickbait articles. Cracked did a report on it, same thing. They let this developer write her own article on her perspective of why being a woman was a contributor. Like, that was part of the article, was like why being a woman was a major contributor to the clickbait articles being a huge source of controversy that eventually, like, and it wasn't just the clickbait articles. There's so much going on with this crap. They banned people from talking about it on 4chan, which only made people think that it was that much more important. They shadow banned people on Reddit, you know, so that you couldn't discuss it on Reddit, which only made it explode worse. Then it became really controversial because censorship got involved. And here's what's crazy, though. You get into this, like, oh, they're censoring us from complaining about this misogyny thing, and then the people who are calling misogynists are worried because the GamerGate side is trying to stop them from calling misogyny. And so if you think about it, GamerGate's trying to you know, kind of censor the, I mean, like, depending on who you ask, GamerGate is trying to censor the anti-GamerGate side, and the anti-GamerGate side is trying to censor the GamerGate side, and they're all just using a lot of moral rhetoric to justify everything that they do. So, that's terrible. What else has gone on with this whole debacle? And I mean, like I say, there's merits on things. But it's like, for me to say, like, oh, you know, GamerGate has merits, or oh, anti-GamerGate has merits, I think would be patently false. Because to say that the whole battle has merits would be wrong. The complaint that gaming journals have gotten to be sort of worthless is an issue that has merits, but it's an individual issue. And it's not like, I don't know, it's not so broad. It's like, you can't say, like, oh, everything GamerGate done has been justified because here's an individual issue that needs to be worked on. And you can't say everything that anti-GamerGate has done is justified because this harassment was bad, or this or that. It's just so, because it's too broad, and it's a mob fight. Everybody in the mobs is attacking everybody else. So, yes, getting derailed to analyze this a bit much. What else has happened? I think that's basically it. Basically everybody's a misogynist and everyone else is corrupt. So if you're involved, I understand your politics, because like I said, I've actually been talking to people on both sides of the debate. And don't get me wrong, for those of you on the GamerGate side, I have actually been banned from no less than 4 feminist Facebooks now. I have like one friend who is willing to engage with me in debate about his views and not block me from Facebook. One friend. I have been blocked from 4 other friends for questioning things. And this drives me crazy, because we've gotten to, we have like feminist scholarship now. And so people will do this and they'll be like, oh, you know, feminism says that society is going downhill. Like all society is going downhill. And I'll say, wait, I question that data because these reasons, and then I get blocked. Like I get blocked from Facebook. It's like, well, if you don't agree, we are a misogynist. And so I know what that's like. I know what that's like. But like I say, I do have one friend who will honestly engage with me in debate. So you can't, and when he does, it's not as, I mean, like, at least it's, what can I say? It would be really nice if both sides would just kind of be able to see that everyone is just kind of scared, and that nobody has any unified goals, and nobody knows what in the heck they stand for, and that everyone is just feeling cornered and worried like their voices are being smothered. And that's probably, I think, what the core of this whole controversy is that nobody really involved understands each other. And this is what's really terrible. You know what I hate about the whole thing? Is the idea that it should be controversial at all, that women are involved in gaming. I mean, I don't like the feminist perspective that women aren't welcome in gaming, because women are welcome in gaming. I mean, like, I play games with Kenza, and it would be, I'm sure a lot of guys would just really wish that a lot of women were into the games that they play, because it's a great way to share a hobby. I mean, it's wonderful. Like, if your girlfriend can sit down with you and play a game of Team Fortress 2 together with you, or she can play like Civilization with you, or Dynasty Warriors, Kenza loves Dynasty Warriors, then that is a wonderful, beautiful thing. And I don't like that the feminist side of this argument keeps on saying that women aren't welcome in these things, because I feel like that's false. I feel like there are a lot of guys in the gaming community who are not only who are perfectly welcome, who are perfectly opening to women and want to see more women in gaming. And the other thing, though, is I don't like how the anti-feminist side has been so on the attack that they overshoot their mark, and they make it seem like no criticism is valid whatsoever. Because it's weird, because some of the criticism is just total misanthropy, but you have to not get so overzealous that you start to attack things that have some merits. I mean, argue in good faith. Assume that the other person is trying to convey something, that they feel like what they're saying is true. Like all these game journalists, I accuse them of doing clickbait articles, but I believe that they honestly think that misogyny is destroying society. I think they believe it. Because a lot of times when you argue with people about this stuff, they really do believe, they hold that conviction. And it may be kind of misanthropic, but for whatever reason they've come to believe it. So if you talk to them in good faith, you might find that there's some kind of reason. I mean, like, sometimes it gets really convoluted. Like with my friend who will actually engage with me, sometimes I find his beliefs are like rooted in a lot of just really wild stuff. And so it's hard to, I mean, it's taken me years and years and years to understand some of the ideological aspects of the debate that's currently ongoing. Which again, I suppose, not to be too critical of anyone, but perhaps that's part of where the issue is and why it's so difficult for everyone to understand. Those of you on the feminist side, if somebody questions what you say, don't block them from Facebook. Engage with them. Explain to them, expect that they are acting in good faith, because my expression, like I say, is I worry that when you say that women are being excluded from things and that they aren't wanted, that you will make women afraid to step up and become a part of those things, because they'll think that they're not wanted. I feel like that's very negative. So you need to be able to act in good faith. When someone questions you and they say, is that true? I don't think that's true. Then engage with them, and be willing to accept that they may in fact have the best interest of women or yourself at heart. They may not be malicious. Don't just block them. Don't assume that their stance is threatening somehow. And the same may even go for the other side. Like if you want feminists to think that there's no battle, then you have to discuss with them on their terms so that they feel like you're going with them. You know, like I say, you want women to be in the gaming community. I know you guys who are gamers, I know so many of you wish that more women would play games. I have seen this complaint. I have actively seen guys wish that they had a girlfriend who would play games with them. I know you guys want it. Express that view. It's one thing that I'm really disappointed. They had a character called Vivian James who came out, and she was supposed to be the mascot of, like, positivity. Like, it was to say, like, women are welcome in games. Like, if you're a gamer and you're a lady, you're cool with us. That was what Vivian James was supposed to say, and I'm so sorry that emerged in such a controversy of conflict, because it's such a positive message, and it's so true. It's what a lot of people want to see. And anyway, that's my take on GamerGate, and for those of you who are really deeply involved, cool off and think of it from that perspective. I know that there are a lot of radical viewpoints in the whole thing, but the more you try to shy away from that, the better off you'll be towards actually achieving your own goals. You can't just refuse to compromise and get anywhere. You can't get anywhere like that. Not in government, not in anything. And I worry a little bit about how often we're starting to polarize in so many political views these days. It just seems very negative. But anyway, though, like I say, that's my take on GamerGate. That is, as I see it, how things are, and what some of the core issues are. But yes, I hope illuminating. I hope no feathers ruffled. Like I said, not calling anyone's particular morals into question. I know a lot of you guys are doing what you think is best, but just recognize that it's gotten to be very messy. So anyway, I will catch you guys later.